Hi everyone, in this video I am reviewing a submitted application for Master's in Mechanical Engineering, and I am giving feedback to this person who watched one of my videos, tried to follow the advice, but they were waitlisted or rejected from the programs that they applied for and are still waiting to hear back from some additional programs. So I'm going to give some commentary and feedback on some areas I see where this person can improve. So just a general overview, this is an international applicant applying for US programs. Their GRE scores are about average for getting into these programs. Their TOEFL scores and GPA, all of that is pretty standard, like nothing terrible there, all pretty average or above average. And they have a decent amount of experience. They graduated 2 years ago. They've worked in various roles doing different engineering projects. They've also presented at a peer-reviewed international conference and had a first author publication accepted from that conference. So overall, this is a great candidate for a master's in mechanical engineering. And so what we're going to focus on here is the essay, and I'm going to read through it and give feedback to where I see it could be strengthened. And overall, the biggest thing I see with this is that this is a really competitive environment applying for mechanical engineering, especially for international students, because there's so many international students applying for STEM programs in the US that makes it more competitive for international students. And the key takeaway from this essay that I want to highlight is that you really need to make yourself stand above the crowd, because everyone you're applying against has, decent scores and has decent amount of experience. So you have to make yourself seem special, seem unique, seem different from the crowd. And so that's what I'm going to focus on in this essay. Like, where are the narrative storytelling pieces that can be uplifted to really make the admissions committee root for this person? Because from the viewpoint of being on an admissions committee, so many people sound the same. You're like, yeah, they sound good. They sound great. I'm sure they'd be fine. And then you read one person who just blows you away, and they have this story that just like warms your heart and motivates you, and you root for that person and you fight for that person in the committee meetings because you want to see them succeed in life. And so that's what I want to help this person do, is look for the elements that they could really uplift to really highlight their unique special value and what they would add to this program. Okay, so let's get started. I'm just going to read and give feedback as I go along, and let me just make sure I'm in suggesting mode. Okay. I want to pursue a master's degree in the field of mechanical engineering with a research focus on mechanical design and mechatronics. My career aspiration is to successfully run a company that focuses on replacing humans in a dangerous work environment, such as manual scavenging, firefighting, and rescue with proxy-controlled robotic systems. I am mainly driven to completely eradicate manual scavenging in my country and replace the people exposed to this toxic and inhumane work conditions. Before I start my company, I've planned to work with startups or growing companies to understand the struggle that goes into it. I have been working with a startup called Sathi as its mission interweaves with my goals. So this is a totally fine intro paragraph. And what I would do to really enhance this intro paragraph is, to me, this is the most interesting part. That this person has a passion for wanting to create better environments for people to work in and not have people in dangerous working conditions. And so what I would do to elevate this paragraph is to actually start with a story about this. So they talk about scavenging or dangerous work environments. I would start this out with a story. Like in my country, thousands of people are exposed to terrible health problems, like blah, 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 who are dependent on these types of jobs to make their ends meet, blah, 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 blah. And then like start out with that as a story where you're explaining to the reader, what is it like? Like, I don't know what it's like to be in a scavenging environment. I don't know what it looks like to be in an environment that is dangerous, with dangerous chemicals and things like that. So I would have this person paint a picture, like explain one of these environments. What does it look like? What does it smell like? What are the actual impacts on people's health that they're being exposed to? What is their lives like? And you can do this in like 3 sentences, like explaining a scavenging yard, and X, Y, and Z, and how you can use technology to reduce the risk to humans, and make that the central theme of this first paragraph, and how starting that out with a story and then ending it with, I want to dedicate my career in mechanical engineering to transforming work conditions for these types of people. And that's why I want to get my master's degree in mechanical engineering. And so I actually think this is a really interesting idea, but to me, what happens in the rest of the essay is that this idea kind of gets lost. It's here in the first paragraph, and I would encourage this person to continue that thread throughout the essay. Like, they're coming back to dedicating their career to transforming these work environments for those who are most vulnerable in these types of environments. Okay, so let's move on to the next paragraph. During my senior year at Vellore Institute of Technology, my preference for the field solidified when working at the Indian Space Research Organization, Spacecraft Mechanics, as a project trainee. I worked closely with Mr. Abhinand Kapoor at the organization for 4 months on the design and development of a modular and effector for an existing rover. I modified the rover to have the capability of excavating and storing samples in isolated modules. Not only did I conduct most of the design work, but I also carried out electrical calculations, precisely the amount of torque required by each motor for both the 4-axis arm and the active modules of the rover, and thoroughly studied how to make the circuits. I presented my work at the Asian Mechanisms and Machine Science Conference 2018, held at the Institute of Science, Bangalore. The interaction was with renowned professors, industrialists, and PhD scholars at the conference made me realize that I have a lot to learn. I decided that higher studies are an inevitable step. So some things I like about this paragraph is it's very concrete what the person did. They worked on this rover, they made modifications, they describe how they made modifications, and they had success in being able to present at this conference. So that's adding to this person's credibility. What I would have them uplift in this paragraph is to describe a little bit more what were the outcomes of the rover. So did they improve the rover's ability to do X, Y, and Z? I want to relate something to this person's resume. Like in their resume, they talked about one project where the modifications they did to a project led from the machinery being okay for lasting for 2 months to lasting for 8 months. And that's like a really big win. Like they took this machinery, they made some modifications, and then that machine became more productive and more useful at a lower cost because of the differences that they added to the design. So I want to see that kind of thing in this essay. Like, what was the actual innovation that they added, or what was the win of this project, so that could be highlighted a little bit more. And then the other thing I want to add is that this sentence, I want it to go a little bit further, because when you are applying for a master's in a STEM program, is that you want to distinguish that you are interested in research and academia, because there's so much innovation and things that are happening in the field. And in the industries, you can work in the industries and you can do innovation and you can produce a lot working in industry that you actually don't need to go back to get a master's degree. So if you are choosing to go and get a master's degree, you actually care about doing research, about publishing, about doing things that academics do. And so you want to uplift in a STEM application that you actually care about those things, and that master's is going to help elevate certain things you want to do and see in your career. So it's interesting how this person said, like, being at the conference made them realize they have a lot more to learn. And I would have them take this like just a step further and talk about how they liked doing research, they liked presenting it, they liked writing and submitting to publications, and that they want to do more of that, and that the master's program is the next step to help them learn more in that environment with academics. So you want to make that point clear when you're applying to STEM type programs. My interest in mechanical design predates my work at ISRO. During my sophomore year, I joined an electric formula student team as a design engineer under the guidance of Dr. Jefferson J.M. The opportunity provided me with options to converge on specific fields. I dug into different subfields and concluded that my interests lie with machine design, manufacturing, and mechanisms. I also recognize what it takes to be a leader while working as the HOD vehicle dynamics in the team for a year. I took up relevant courses such as bio-inspired design, product design, finite element analysis, tool design, and non-destructive testing and evaluation. These courses helped me understand design thinking and methodology and played critical roles in evaluating my interest in my desired field. So to me, this paragraph does not add any value to the person's case. And I see this a lot in people's essays, where you're saying a lot of things that sound nice, but they're not actually describing you and your abilities. Just saying that you took classes on certain topics and that you know leadership is important and you learned about X, Y, and Z, that doesn't really paint a picture of what you're capable of. It's just like saying a bunch of stuff that sounds nice, but it lacks weight, it lacks power, because it's just a bunch of like, okay, that's kind of like anyone can write this paragraph and say, I took a lot of classes on X, Y, and Z, and leadership, I recognize the value of leadership. This is what I mean by I want you to show, not tell. You're just telling me a bunch of stuff here. So I would encourage this person to show me how they discovered what it takes to be a leader. So if this example was like, I was working on this project, we had these challenges, and I stepped up and I did X, Y, and Z. And in doing that, I had to elevate my leadership, and then I learned X, Y, and Z. And then my team went on to achieve X, Y, and Z. That's showing me that you learned how to be, like, how you actually learned to be a leader, how you demonstrated that you were a leader. And then in showing examples, you can talk about the things that you did that show that you know these topics, like bio-inspired design, product design, tool design. Like if you're saying, like, on that project, I use what I learned in my bio-inspired design class to then do X, Y, and Z, then you're showing that you actually understand bio-inspired design, not just saying, oh, I took a class on that. You need to show how you use that thing, how you come to know it and use it in the real world. So that's how I would help this person elevate this paragraph, by getting a lot more specific and concrete on what they actually did. This paragraph, I already see it's like super long, so I would break this down into 2 paragraphs. Junior year, I worked on a project under Dr. Harish R. on the numerical analysis of a re-entry bluff body with modified helical arrow spikes at the School of Mechanical and Building Science, VIT. My team tried multiple hypotheses to supplement an existing model. After 2 years of intensive research and various reconsiderations, we were able to conclude on a reliable result. Currently working on applying for journal publication. The manuscript is available on demand. This is like really long and wordy, but it's not really clear to me what this means. And I have no background in engineering, so these are a lot of words I don't understand. But even for someone not in your field, and this is why I recommend having like siblings and friends and parents, people who don't know your field, also read your essays, because you want some outsider perspective to highlight what is truly important, that is universally applicable and universally understandable in your essays. You want that kind of stuff to come through. So here, I'm not sure what the actual win was. So the person says, we were able to conclude a reliable result after 2 years. And that doesn't mean anything to me. Like, what kind of result? What does that mean? What was the win? What was the takeaway? What was actually important about what you did over 2 years? And so you want to get specific in your writing so that it's clear for the reader what the win is, like what was actually impressive about what you did. Because so far what I hear is you worked for 2 years and you got a reliable result after that amount of time. But to me, I'm just like, is that fast? Is that slow? Is that like, I have not enough context to evaluate what that even means or why it matters. So you want to get really specific in your writing to highlight those kinds of things. Next part. I also worked under Dr. Vijay Kumar at the Tata Research and Development Center on electric vehicle sizing and computational analysis of a variable pitch helical baffle heat exchanger. I've also developed an application using MATLAB and Simulink, which is currently being used by the center to determine the size of the battery unit required to travel a particular range. While I enjoyed working in the Department of Spacecraft Mechanisms at ISRO, I never felt satisfied. The impact which I felt was necessary for one's life is what I considered missing in me. Sometimes you have to ask difficult questions in life, and I ask myself, am I truly driven to provide for the society, or am I motivated by self-interest? I needed to answer this. That's when I joined a startup called Sathi, which manufactures biodegradable hygiene products and their machines. So this to me would be a good break for a new paragraph, because this paragraph's really long. Okay, so something else in this paragraph. These two examples to me, I would want to see them like stretched out, pulled out, more detail. The person is kind of name dropping, like you're name dropping. I worked here, I did this, I use these applications, and you're giving the reader a sense of like you kind of, you've been in the space, but it's not giving me enough detail of what you actually do and what you're actually capable of. So I want to know, like with this computational analysis you did, what did it actually lead to? What was the outcome of it? What did you do that was innovative or unique in this space? And I know, you might be limited on space in terms of like with every example, you can't go through and describe every little thing you did, which is why I really recommend you choose fewer examples and go into more depth about fewer examples rather than try to list every single project you've ever worked on and only talk about it very briefly. It's better to just highlight like 2 or 3 examples, go into depth, rather than name like 5, 6 examples where you don't have enough space to go into depth on them. Like they will see your resume, they will see the breadth of projects you've done on your resume. Let that stuff live in your resume and let your essay be the space for you to go deep. So this, and then the other thing I want to say, this thing at the end, it's interesting to me that this person is posing a question of like, what I discovered in that space was that something was missing for me, that I want to do work that is more mission driven. And what I would like to have seen is for this to tie back to what the person said in their intro statement, like coming from this country I come from where people are in really bad work conditions. I'm thinking about the skill sets that I'm developing, and I'm wondering, like, who does this serve? it's not serving the community that I care about and the community that I want to make a difference in. And once I discover that, I realize I want to move in a new direction. And so I would want to see this person kind of tie back to that theme a little bit more directly that they outlined in the first paragraph. And then, but I think this is a really interesting kind of trajectory that they're showing in the essay. Like I did X, Y, and Z. I performed, I executed, and that made me realize I want to go in a new direction. I think that's a really interesting thing to name and highlight in an essay of like how you got from doing one thing to wanting to do another. So I think this is a good transition point. I would just want it to go a little bit further. I need to answer this. That's when I joined a startup called Sathi, which manufactures biodegradable hygiene products and their machines. The company's vision, technology, and health for people in need is intertwined with my goals. Having lived in remote areas and having observed the state of women in rural India firsthand gave me the pride to work and help enable women on a grassroots level. I continue to stick to the core aspects of my engineering by working as a design engineer in the same company. I managed to help structure the department, improve production and product quality. With the support of Mr. Tarun Brothra, I implemented what I learned from my previous experiences and developed 6 variants of a vending machine, including the design, code, and assembly of complete electrical systems with the help of Arduino IDE and fritzing. Though I had previously realized that further studies are the right step, I could not miss out on this opportunity to experience what it takes to work for a social cause. I believe that an experience like this had strengthened my belief in what I aspire to become, and I feel now it is the right time to pursue my higher academic goals. So, again, I want to see a little bit more storytelling in this. So here the person's saying, I've lived in remote areas and I've observed the state of women in rural India. So for the readers in the US who know nothing about rural India, what does that actually look like? Paint a picture. When you're in rural India, what is happening for women? What are their challenges? What's going on that makes you connected with wanting to serve them? And how I mentioned earlier that the first paragraph in the intro, you can paint a picture of the working conditions. You could actually start with this as an example in the first paragraph and say, when I was living in remote India, I observed X, Y, and Z, and actually paint a picture of what was going on, what you saw. That inspired me to want to dedicate my career to X, Y, and Z. And so you could actually like tie this together very closely by starting your first paragraph with this example, and then you come back to it in this paragraph saying like, when I was working with Sathi, I realized it was connected to my goals of what I want to do in my own country. And then the other thing I would say in this paragraph, again, I want to see a little bit more detail. Like I managed to help structure the department, improve production and product quality, and I designed this vending machine. I want to know what the win is. Like what was the outcome? Can you give examples of what you mean by improve production and improve quality? What did you do? Then what happened? Same thing with this vending machine. It's great. You completed a vending machine, but what was unique about it? How was that vending machine executed? What outcomes did it lead to? How was that vending machine different or unique or innovative or special? Like tell the reader what the win is of having done that. But I think the intention of this paragraph is right. The intention of I went from, working in this environment to wanting to be in a socially driven startup. I think that's a really good intention of like showing that shift, but I want this person to just bring it forward a little bit more with making the examples more concrete and focusing on the wins. Although I am open to other opportunities, I am particularly excited to research and be a part of the nuclear and applied robotics group led by Dr. M. Pryor and Dr. S. Landsberger. I'm quite fascinated with the work that goes on with the Volt bolt, as I believe that it would give me the right platform to provide me with the most relevant technical knowledge. The mission of the Nuclear and Applied Robotics Group matches precisely my vision. So here I see a typo, and this person sent me this document as a PDF, so I assumed it was like the final version. But you want to really have outside readers to make sure that you don't have any typos in your application. To me, what's missing from this paragraph is it being more specific about why the Nuclear and Applied Robotics Group is the best fit for this person. So this person claims that they want to have a career focused on serving those who are vulnerable at their work because of the work conditions, or serving those like in rural India. I want to hear from this person, how does the Nuclear and Robotics Group actually help you achieve that goal? Like, what are you going to be exposed to there that is going to set you up to be successful on that line of goals? Right now, I have no idea what the Nuclear and what this group does and why you being a part of that group is relevant for the goals you want to achieve. So you want to make that connection clear for the readers. So Bolt, what is that? What do they do? How does being a part of that give you that platform? Or how does being a part of that give you what technical knowledge that you think you need and is important to you? You want to actually name that. I would be able to learn a lot about the culture of technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship from Dr. Stephen Nichols. This would shape me into a better leader for the company I plan to launch. Finally, I would love to study under Dr. Richard H. Crawford, a person with such significant accomplishments, especially in teaching design subjects. I like the idea of manufacturing and design specialization, as it allows graduate students to personalize their study, choosing topics that would best suit their goals. This flexibility would ensure that I get relevant coursework that would enable me to keep my graduate study productive. A course like engineering entrepreneurship will help me develop my leadership and entrepreneurship skills. Mechanism design, robot mechanism design will help me further my knowledge of design. Mechatronics, Advanced Mechatronics 1 and 2, Biomechanics of Human Movement will help me acquire the necessary experience that I'm currently lacking. So again, here I see a lot of like name dropping, like you're naming professors, naming classes, but I want to know, why are these topics and why are these classes relevant to the actual goals you have for your career? So why is biomechanics important for you to be able to achieve the goals you want to achieve? And where you say, help me acquire the necessary experience that I'm currently lacking. Like, what is it that you are lacking? Like, what gap do you feel like you've had so far in your career? And how does this help you bridge the gap to the career you want to have? After graduate studies, I plan to accumulate relevant work experience. After enough exposure and with the help of Austin Technology Incubator, specifically the SEAL, Social Entrepreneurship Acceleration Launch, I will be able to launch my company and help improve the lives of workers worldwide in dire situations. The strong alumni network of industrial veterans, talented students and faculty, and cutting-edge research, along with a sense of social responsibility, convinced me to consider the University of Texas at Austin as the perfect place to pursue my master's. What I would have liked to see is this conclusion really come back to the person's goals of wanting to serve those communities, like those vulnerable workers that they start out the statement with. So I would like to see them come back to say, like, all of these things that I'm going to be doing in this program will lead directly to me being able to pursue my goal and my dream of creating this kind of technology in India where vulnerable workers will no longer have to be in environments that are hazardous. So I'd want them to just completely tie that loop, come all the way back around. Like they mentioned briefly, like, this will help me launch my company, but the reader may have already forgotten, like in paragraph 1, what that company was about. So I would just want them to tie it all together. And overall, I'd say that this essay there's nothing terribly wrong about it, but it also just doesn't stand out. And the advice I'm giving are all the ways to like tie everything together and just make the storytelling come alive and make the key points that this person cares about addressing hazards in a certain population and doing that with mechanical engineering. Like, I want that to be like the key focus of this essay. And I want this person to be able to elevate and speak a little bit more specifically about the experiences they've had. And that would make this essay really pop. It would take it from like an average essay where you're ending up on waiting lists to something where you pop and people see like, oh yes, we need to have this person. This person, their next step in their career is coming to gain these skills so that they can execute and achieve on these dreams that they have. And the last thing I want to say is that I have office hours regularly where people show their essays, drafts in Google Doc form, and I talk through their essays like this and give them advice on like, oh, this is what's interesting to me. This doesn't seem relevant. Here's where you need to get more specific. So if you'd like to do that with me, sign up for one of my upcoming office hour sessions and we will do this live on a Zoom call. And please like and subscribe. If you subscribe to my newsletter, you will get updates on when upcoming office hours are happening.